All right, finally, another review on this channel. Don't worry, I'm still going to keep posting here, I promise. And today it's going to be the first book in the Yarrick Omnibus, Imperial Creed. This is the cover right here. Just real quick about this channel, I do want to cover some more Age of Sigmar books. That's what I'm really into right now, and I'm actually reading those. And I also feel like there's a little bit of a void on YouTube in terms of Age of Sigmar content, so hopefully I can fill that. And I'm reading a bunch of them right now, but I've also been reading Warhammer 40k books. So I've got 2 reviews of Warhammer 40k books coming up in the next couple weeks. And then we'll do some Age of Sigmar, and then we'll do some other, just like, I might do some Brandon Sanderson and stuff like that. And leave a comment and let me know what you'd want to see me review on this channel, because, any interaction or, comments or likes or anything really goes a long way. Keeps me motivated to keep making these videos. Anyway, let's talk about Yarrick. Okay, so Commissar Yarrick is a famous commissar in the Astra Militarum, which is like 40k's like regular infantry army. They're humans. They're not space marines that are genetically modified. They're not, Xenos or Chaos corrupted. They're regular people in, they're the largest force of the Imperium, really. And they're out there battling Xenos, battling Chaos, battling traitors, everything else like that. Yarrick is most well known for his battles against the orcs on Armageddon. This first book takes place before all that. So we're not looking at the grizzled veteran who commands absolute terror and respect from both Space Marine and orcs. Instead, we get a fascinating look at Sebastian Yarrick in the early days of his career. Oh, by the way, I should say too that this book is by David Annandale. And I thought his writing was really great. I thought the pacing was good, and the parts that I think would be very difficult to write near the end, where some kind of chaotic stuff is going on without giving too much away. He does a very good job at describing, the scene of these things through words that paints a chaotic picture in your mind. When you're reading through this, especially the last act or whatever you want to call it of the book is absolutely insane. So David Annandale does a good job. I thought I really enjoyed the first book. Well, we'll get to my overall review in a minute. Let me just set up. This is going to be no spoilers in this, but let me just kind of set up the premise here. Annandale does a phenomenal job showing us the foundation of Yarrick's iron-willed. This is where he really comes into his character, I think. And I think the Yarrick that you get at the end of the book, while they're not too different. Like he's still fundamentally the same person, but I think you could see how he would grow a lot during the course of this story. And I really like getting an origin, and I don't want to spoil anything. Obviously, we know that the later images of Yarrick look like this, right? Where he's got an eye missing here, and he's got the mechanical arm similar to what orcs use. Of course, when he's battling the orcs, I'm sure he'll get that. But in this early days, this is how our Commander Yarrick is. This is before his battle scars, This is before becoming the champion of Armageddon. This character is fiercely dedicated to the Imperium and is uncompromising in his duty. And in this book, he's already demonstrating the tactical brilliance that would eventually make him a living legend. So yeah, overall, it's a great character study. And it's a great foundation for this character, I think. And what's really cool is I also bought the model for Yarrick, because I like that. I like when you can get an action figure, or you can get something to go along and have a representation of these characters in books that you've read. So I'm going to be painting that. I'll show that on my channel eventually when that's done. I have so many Warhammer models to paint right now. I'm way behind on them. Trying to learn my techniques. Anyway, the last thing I want to do to set this up is talk about what a commissar is. So he's a commissar, which is an officer rank. You have like enlisted ranks, right? And then you have officers. He is an officer, and he's more powerful than a regular officer, because a commissar, the main thing about a commissar is that they're a political officer, right? They're a political officer, and they are supposed to be the ones who are looking for any dissent in the ranks and punishing those that are not following orders, but also at the same time boosting morale and leading by example. They're out there on the battlefield, first in the charge, screaming and yelling in the name of the Emperor. And this book does such a good job of showing what the role of a commissar is and how powerful it can be to turn the tide of battle if you have a great commissar. And there's a character that's like a mentor to Yarrick during the course of this book, who is kind of teaching him all this as it goes along. And then by the end, it seems like Yarrick really has the, grasp on this, and he makes a big difference in this book. He's not just like a bystander at these battles. He's a big reason why things develop the way they do in this book. I'm trying really hard not to give away any spoilers, but it's also up to, like I said, they're a political officer as a commissar. So it's also up to them to navigate the diplomacy of conflict between different officers in the higher ranks of the Astra Militarum. It's their job to navigate these muddy waters and do what's best ultimately for the Imperium. And like I said, another thing to keep in mind with this is also their job to carry out essentially battlefield punishment on those who are costing the Imperium that battle or war or whatever it is they're doing. They're deserting, they're traitors, whatever. The commissars are there to stop that. This is what the cover of the book looks like that I read. This is I have the omnibus, so I will read all three eventually. So a little bit about the setting and the conflict. Yarrick is immersed in this politically heated situation on a planet where you have the ecclesiarchy, I hope I'm saying that right, which is basically the church of the emperor, and you have the barons, who are like a political entity on this planet. And the ecclesiarchy is basically trying to get rid of the barons and push them out by increasing the taxes on them and the tithes, because all the planets of the Imperium have to pay tithes to the emperor and to Holy Terra. And there's a conflict between these two parties. And then in the mix of all this, there's also corruption in some of the, when they initially get there to battle off some like traitors, and they're there to help solve this initial conflict. And let's just say there's some deeper things that you find out about the enemy, where chaos and evil are deeper rooted in this planet than what it first seems. And I hope that's not too much of a spoiler, but this is the setting, right? They're showing up at this planet that's on the brink, basically, because of all the tension that it has between different parties on the planet, and may have some kind of underlying infection of something that is even worse. So it's very grimdark. And I have to say also, David Annandale does a great job, like just writing a war novel as well, right? This is like your characters that you're experiencing in this book are in the trenches, literally at times in the trenches. They're on the front lines. This is Astra Militarum. So this is what they look like. They're battling, whatever forces come against them. There's a part where there's like all this artillery shelling coming down that is destroying things, and they're running from like shelter to shelter, just trying to avoid the artillery. And he really captures the essence. I mean, I've never been in battle, but it seems to me like he captures like the essence and the chaos that is battle, that is war. He also does a good job, Annandale, of going into things like the Scala Progenium and Commissar training and the rigid dogmas that shape these characters. Also, it's a masterclass in world building. I think this world that they come to, like I said, it's kind of on the brink. It feels really alive. Also, the story is very accessible. If you're new to 40K, having a general idea of how the Imperium works is helpful, but you don't need to be a 40K lore encyclopedia to enjoy this, essentially. If you love military sci-fi, political maneuvering, and character-driven stories, this book is going to be incredible. So that's what this is at its essence. Yes, it takes place in the 40K universe, and there's a lot of aspects of it, especially when you get to the last portion of the book, the last like quarter of the book. It's a military sci-fi thriller, kind of. And again, I just love the fact that it lays the foundations for this character who becomes a living legend one day. This guy right here. Just look at this dude. Oh, there we go. That's the one I needed to show. This is Yarrick. Now, this is a more grizzled, later in his career Yarrick, but this is the character he's going to grow into. And like I said, just reiterating, the characters in this book are in the trenches themselves, battling against their foe. Let's see, I'm just showing some pictures that I had brought up before this, because I realized I didn't switch pictures very often in the first portion of this that I was talking about. But this is all stuff that isn't necessarily directly from this book, but it all really like captures the theme and the essence of what was going on in this book. Basically, this militia is stationed on this planet, and they're caught between political parties trying to keep the cool, and then ultimately having to battle it out. This one's pretty cool, and you can see the commissar there. This image really shows the role of the commissar. He's like the one pointing the sword there, like leading the charge. There's some people that could say that, Yarrick's kind of one-dimensional, but I don't look at him that way at all. And I think the character is definitely diverse and interesting to read. And I think his devotion to the Imperial Creed, which is why it's called Imperial Creed, and to the Emperor, and to, the Astra Militarum, and to upholding the standard of a commissar, is a major part of what makes Yarrick Yarrick. He knows he has to be a role model. He knows when they're getting hammered by the enemy, when it seems bleak, like they can't win, he has to be the guy that sees the tactic that they can use, but not only does that, but shows by example and leads a charge on a counteroffensive and screams and yells and, you know, says these things that really rally the troops and make them believe in their hearts that they can overcome the enemy. And I think the author does a really great job at like showing how powerful a single commissar could be in battle. Overall, Imperial Creed is a stellar starting point for the Yara saga. It takes a hero that we already revere and fleshes him out into a highly compelling, multi-dimensional protagonist. I want to know if you've read this book, Imperial Creed. I want to know what your thoughts are on the next books without any spoilers, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this book. All right, now for my rating. I guess I'm going to do these out of 5 because my first couple books on here, I think I did out of 10, but I realized like Goodreads and stuff, which is a site I reference often, is out of 5. So maybe I'll just keep that standard. I give this book a 4. Flat 4.0, which is good for me. That's a good, I highly recommend this book. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really interesting. And, I didn't touch on a lot of the exciting developments that come in this because I didn't want to give anything away about how the plot develops or what they end up facing. But I'll just say this, it gets pretty crazy in this book. Beyond just being about soldiers in battle. It gets, like I said, the latter half of this book is an intense read, but it keeps you wanting to keep going. And I will say this, it definitely sets up the next books really well. So I'm definitely going to be reading the next books. I'm super happy I read this one. I'm going to be painting the figure. I'll show that on this channel when I have them finished. Who knows? Hopefully that won't be too long from now. And like I said, I'm going to be coming out with more book reviews on this channel. General Sci-Fi, 40K, Age of Sigmar. I'm really going to try to focus on like after I get next book I'm reviewing is Gaunt's Ghost Volume 1. I have the omnibus for that one too, at least the first omnibus. That book was amazing, by the way. That's the next one you're going to see because I just finished Yarrick and I just finished the first Gaunt's Ghost book, and I was super happy with both. But after Gaunt's Ghost, it's going to be a bunch of Age of Sigmar books because like I said, I really see like not that many people doing the Age of Sigmar reviews and stuff, and I like those books and I like the setting, so I'm going to try to make more of those. I'm reading several of those books right now because I'm one of those weird people that reads multiple novels at the same time. I can just do that. I come from reading comic books, as you can see behind me, and in comics, you read like 15 different stories at the same time, and you can somehow keep track of them all. So I can read multiple books at the same time, which sometimes makes me get through books faster, but it also sometimes just makes me take a long time because I'm switching through books. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, look out for those videos coming from this channel. Let me know what you want to see. Please leave a like. Please subscribe. It really helps and it motivates me to make more. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. And don't forget to like and subscribe.